Greetings, ladies and gentlemen of the internet. Jan Michael here. Oh boy, I've not been looking forward to this review. I get that there is a lot of people out there that absolutely love Black Myth Wukong, to the point that they were completely pissed off that it didn't take home Game of the Year at the Game Awards. And if I'm gonna be completely honest, I can see why it didn't. What the game does well, it does very well. But there are things in the game that bring it down for me. So if you are a huge fan of that title, you're probably gonna want to click away because I can see this review making you unhappy. Or stick around and get pissed off. That works too.
Their minds yearn to ascend, yet fame still holds sway. Their glory fades through time.
One of the oldest influential pieces of literature in the world is Journey to the West, published in 1592. One of the most, if not the most, popular Chinese literature of all time, its story has gone on to inspire countless pieces of work, including everyone's favorite, Dragon Ball Z. Heck, the first cutscene of Black Myth Wukong has Wukong flying on a cloud while fighting off enemies with his staff. Needless to say, you're gonna find references to things that you know about while playing the game. Part of the appeal of Black Myth Wukong is in its style. From its monster designs that I honestly was completely fascinated with, there are a lot of times you'll see these ginormous creatures or grotesque monstrosities, and before I even engage with them, I just had to kind of pause and take a look at what went into each of their animations because I found them very fascinating. The setting itself is also really cool to look at. If you're not stopping at some point just to appreciate your surroundings, the environment, what actually went into the landscape building of the game, then I think you need a better TV. But hands down, my favorite part of it is the combat. Specifically, the way the protagonist moves while fighting. The jumps, the kicks, the flips, the way that he uses magic. I honestly thought it was so fascinating to look at, and I'm not ashamed to admit I died a couple of times just because I wanted to see exactly what went into each of the steps that went into the fight itself, so there's that for you as well. I honestly think that even if you don't appreciate these things as a whole, you're still gonna find this protagonist to be incredibly cool. Even with no words spoken, I think that he's still very personable, and I liked being him, I liked fighting as him, and I liked going on this journey as him. Focusing more on the combat itself, if you played any Dark Souls game, Bloodborne, Elden Ring, or any clones of those games, you'll get a good understanding of what to expect here. Though, granted, with some changes I actually really like. First, you don't lose all your experience upon death, needing to go to where you fell to pick it back up. You're constantly growing and are able to plug those experience points into anything you want at any time, which is really nice. Also, while you don't necessarily have to change your fighting style if you don't want to, it's available to you if you want to experiment. There's also quite a bit to unlock that you'll want to try out, including various transformations granted throughout the journey, magic that is gifted to you, and just plain stats that you can boost. You're also able to reset your skill points at any time, essentially letting you tailor each fight to how you want to approach it without fear of being stuck to one playstyle. But again, if you want to forgo all of that, you can get through the game with just your basic skills. It's not impossible. And did I mention the game actually lets you pause? It definitely earns some points just for that. There are other soul staples that you're going to find familiar here. Things such as shrines that you can rest that respawn certain enemies. You get a flask that lets you replenish your health a set number of times, which you can upgrade. And of course, the game is hard as balls constantly, so if you ever get stuck on a boss, one of the cool things is there are side activities you can do where you can fight other bosses, collect more transformations, get more items, generally just level up before you go back to that boss that you were stuck on and give it another try. And if all of that fails, you can always do the whole get good method, which actually, more than any game of its ilk, I found myself actually having to learn the patterns of a lot of different bosses before I was able to get through them here. So please be prepared to stay in this for the long run if you do decide to give the game a try. That being said, there is one aspect to combat that I absolutely hated. It doesn't happen with every boss fight, but it does tend to occur with the last ones of each stage. And that is that the game dictates how you have to fight these battles. Let's take the final boss fight of the second area as an example. I got so used to this thing's fighting style that the only reason I would die is because this thing would be practically untouchable unless it was right in the center of the arena. As soon as it went anywhere near its sand protection, it would be impervious to your attacks. And as you're also dodging its moves at the same time that you're trying to hit it, you're bound to screw something up at some point just because the fight drags on for so long and you get annihilated. So how do you get around this? Well, you go on a side mission that gives you an item that dispels the sand, essentially making this fight a complete joke. Seriously, I didn't get hit once as soon as I had that item. Want another example? Let's take the final boss of the third section, where you get 2 cutscenes that make you take a hit, thus forcing you to use your flask to heal up, lest you get hit by a stray attack that completely wipes you out. But why? Why are you dictating how I fight this boss? I'm not getting hit, you're forcing me to get hit. Why do I either need to be banging my head against a wall or getting some sort of item that turns the fight into easy mode? I really don't like that they forced you to do these things, because it's essentially the game forced you to play the way that it wants, and that's just bad game design. There were also control problems I kept encountering, especially when it came to the quick transformation attacks you can get. To activate this attack, you need to push the L2 and R2 buttons at the same time, but so often I would push the buttons only for the sub-menu to pop up instead. And since the game doesn't pause during this menu, you're either wasting the attack because the enemy had time to move out of the way, or you get taken out because the attack wouldn't activate. It was so constant that I started ignoring this mechanic, as I was afraid it would end up fucking me over during critical moments. There's also the odd enemy placement that I encountered, especially during the third chapter. Like, there are moments in that chapter specifically, I remember walking through snow-covered landscapes for minutes, not encountering any enemies, and I thought to myself, oh, am I going the right way? Only for it to not be the case. I am heading in the right direction, and then all of a sudden there's like 4 to 6 enemies all lumped together ready to screw your shit up. And not that I'm complaining about the enemies being lumped together, you want a challenge, which those type of things do provide, but why are there long stretches of nothing happening? It's definitely a design choice made by a first-time developer, which it is. It's just one of the shortcomings of that lack of experience. Okay, I know I ramble for quite a bit, but all in all, Black Myth Wukong is great. There is so much to appreciate and admire, and even though I just joked about it, it is impressive that this was all made by a first-time developer. Whatever Game Science does next, I'm gonna be excited for. I just hope they're able to smooth out the rough edges that this game ultimately suffers from. Not content on just monkeying around, I give Black Myth Wukong a 4 out of 5 with the recommendation to play it. Honestly, if you plan on exploring every inch of what the game has to offer, you're gonna have a great time, as you'll acquire the necessary items to get past the more annoying encounters. If you just plan on sticking to the main path, then be prepared for some frustrating moments, as the game does test your patience from time to time.
Sweet destiny.
And that's another review done. Told you I wasn't looking forward to this one. And I'm sure the comments are gonna make me feel better about the whole thing. Whatever, it's done, it's over with. 2 more titles left. So join me tomorrow for hopefully a better experience. But I mean, I've been saying that for 2 days in a row, so who knows what happens. Until then, everybody, like always, stay safe out there and have a good one.